Hello, incredible soul. Welcome back to the Embodied Woman podcast. I am your host, Anna, the Wellness Architect, and I want to explore the energetics of this time we're in. As some of you know by now, that embodied wellness truly isn't just about architecting radiant physical health, it's about nourishing the physical, energetic, mental, emotional, and spiritual elements of your body, of your wellness. And we are stardust in human form. We are the divine embodied, and we are so impacted by these solar and lunar cycles, by the seasons. We are an extension of nature. We are so interconnected with nature, and our body is always responding to what is transpiring around us. And in this time with the equinox, we had this new moon in Pisces. There's so much coming up for us. We've been in that completion of that shedding cycle and letting go, and now stepping into the year of the fire horse and the momentum and the energy going forward. It is such an incredible time. And if you feel a lot of chaos, you feel a lot of upheaval in your life or in the world, know that that chaos precedes creation. That is part of the creation energy that is here for us. That whatever looks like it's falling apart really is falling together, because as it was, it could not sustain these systems that were broken, that were biased, that were unfair, are being illuminated. They are being examined, and we're seeing the discrepancies, the disparities. We're seeing the deficiencies within them. And it's time for us to recognize that so that we can remember our wholeness and our power and rise. Because with this season that we're in, we're coming into spring in the Northern Hemisphere. And spring is this time of renewal and rebirth, of blossoming and blooming. And just like nature blooms and blossoms, so too do we. And we go through seasons. We went through winter, and that is a time to root, to reconnect, to go within. And now we feel this outward moving energy to express and expand, to be seen, to create, to move forward. Now, this is the wisdom of nature, and we've always lived so connected to nature up until more recently in the last few decades and centuries. When we are so disconnected from nature, we see it in our bodies, we see it in the symptoms we're experiencing, we see it in the way we relate to one another. This planetary health is simply a mirror for our human health. We are living in a time where there's more evolution in technology and more modernity, more resource available to us, and more technological advancement that is being revealed and created, and yet we have never seen this much illness. And this highlights the disconnect between ourselves and nature and between our minds and our bodies. We have been seeing ourselves as separate and forcing and willing our way to make things happen rather than allowing things to happen. A seed, an acorn, doesn't need to be willed to root, to rise, to blossom and bear leaves and grow into the magnificent ancient oak that it becomes. And there is that force, that divine spark of intelligence within you that carries that too. So when we honor the cycles, we honor the seasons, we don't have to force things to happen. We allow the flow of life to inspire what is next, because spring and nature never rush, yet everything gets done, as that beautiful quote goes. So why do we feel like we have to rush? Personally, I've never resonated with New Year's being in the middle of winter in the Northern Hemisphere, January 1st. You look back on the calendar, Aries was the first sign of the zodiac. April was the first month historically. And you look at October, you look at December, Oct meaning eight. Why is October the 10th month then? And then December, Dec meaning 10. Why is it the 12th month? So when we look back, we see these cycles and we see that there was an interconnectedness and a mirroring in our relationship with nature and how we lived, and a design, a divine design in how we lived. And during winter can look like on the surface nothing is happening, yet underneath the soil, magic is happening. The appearance of stillness does not signal absence. it is a deep presence because that period of pause and dormancy is necessary for the next phase of growth. It's preparation. What is happening underneath the surface, underneath the ground, cannot be seen, but it can be felt and sensed. So even when you doubt if it's working, even when you doubt if you're on path or what is happening and it doesn't look like it's working, can you hold that faith and that vision, knowing that there's a season, that you are being prepared, that you are rooting? Because the quiet of winter, the deep intelligence of nature is that you have the blossoming, the harvest, and then the rest. You have that in cycles and sequences and patterns. You're not meant to be always out there producing. You're meant to rest, to reconnect, to return. There's a concept I love, and trees have always been so symbolic on my journey, but I've always felt so deeply connected and inspired by trees because trees have deep, vast networks of roots, and you can only rise as high as you root. So for trees that are hundreds of feet tall, what sustains that strength is the root system, and the root system is as deep and as wide as it is tall. Yet so many of us want to rise. We all want to rise. We want to be seen. We want to be in the glory and the success. Yet we're not truly rooted in who we are, in our truest, most aligned, most radiant, confident version. And so when we try and rush and force things to happen out of timing, we'll feel that misalignment show up because you are being called to root. This is not punishment, it is preparation. And as I shared in the last episode about returning to myself, to my radiance rituals, to my health, to my life, to my sovereignty, I feel like this time with my mom and this caregiving, although it was so challenging and sometimes it felt like, what is going on? There's so much pain here. It was preparation. My mom is the reason that I pursued my own path, that I delved into the research, that I created embodied wellness, because I was not satisfied with the answers, or lack of answers rather, that we were getting from the system. The medical doctors kept referring us to specialists and kept telling us this and that, and this all feels like what is true. And if we're not anchored in ourselves, how can we know what feels like truth and what does not? Because in order to expand and rise, we must root, must anchor into who we are, to sit with ourselves, to know ourselves so deeply so that when we do show up and we are seen in the frequency of our power and our truth rather than in this performative version of ourselves. And this period of my life has been one of deep rooting. These last 8.5 years have been deeply rooting, focusing on my health, focusing on my relationship with my body, focusing on studying and learning and helping my mom heal and walking with her on her health journey. It's been one that I've wondered, am I doing enough? I just want to rise. I just want to emerge from what felt like this period of darkness. But in that phase of darkness, in that period of incubation, that seed is underground and it has to break through that seed pod and that shell to then be able to take root. But if you rush that rooting process, if you rush the growth process, your roots won't be as strong. You won't be as anchored. You won't be as healthy. So I've come to understand that in order to rise, we must root. That rooting is the foundation for rising, and they are interconnected. One moves upward toward the sky, one moves downward into the earth, deeper and deeper. So the challenges we experience, the challenges and fear and doubt, all of that is not meant to hinder us. It's meant to catalyze our evolution, our becoming. Our pain becomes our purpose. The wounds become wisdom. The tests become treasures. The triggers become treasures. These all reveal where we can go deeper, deeper into ourselves, returning to ourselves, anchoring into ourselves, deeper into who we are so we can rise more fully, more powerfully into who we are. Because when you know that you've been preparing and you've been rooting, that is what makes your blooming possible. There's this concept that I love, and it's be the thermostat, not the thermometer. A thermometer responds to the external environment and gives you a reading of the temperature of the environment. Whereas a thermostat is this calibration portal, this calibration frequency where it sets the temperature and the room is heated or cool to meet that point. So when we go into a room and we're not anchored, we're not rooted in ourselves, but we're wanting to be seen and we're feeling everyone's energy, we're then the thermometer that's responding and reacting to life rather than living in creation and being in our frequency and being the thermostat that sets a frequency that others then respond to because it's determined by your internal state. You are meant to set the frequency, to hold the frequency, and then let people respond. You're not asking the room to see you. You're in the room, and the room feels you and calibrates to you. Most of the world has been conditioned to act like a thermometer. Everyone's living their lives in reaction when we are here to live in creation. And what's interesting is that creation and reaction contain the same letters, yet are spelled differently and convey different meanings. So when we live in reaction, we're living in that victim state of consciousness, like life is happening to me and I don't have power and I don't have control. And it's just like life keeps happening and I just keep doing in response to something. Whereas life in creation is I move, the universe responds, and I am here and I am present and intentional with my action. So this time that we're living in is so heightened. It's so unprecedented. We've never lived through anything like this before. And while it can feel chaotic and full of fear and uncertainty, there are frequencies here to tap into that are higher vibrational frequencies. Instead of defaulting to fear, which is this mass promoted and produced frequency that makes people more easily controlled and manipulated, we get to tap into the frequency of excitement because frequency of excitement and fear are the same vibrational frequency, only like fear is excitement without breath. So you are the alchemist. You get to live your life in creation and create magic, beauty, excitement from that fear. You get to alchemize the emotions. There's a lot of emotional intensity, a lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty, but can we hold certainty in our becoming and what we are creating, knowing that where we are does not determine where we are going, that in chemistry, sometimes there are these huge reactions that happen, and it's like we're trying to create this new compound. We're not trying to create it, we are creating it. We are in that process of creating a new compound, and in order for that compound to be created, you mix these different elements and solvents and different ingredients together, and then there's a reaction. Well, so many of us in the reaction freak out and make it mean something instead of seeing it as an inevitable and necessary part of the process in creating that which we desire. So trust that that is what is transpiring right now and that we get to set the frequency instead of letting everyone else's emotions and fear and all of this dictate how we're feeling. We get to hold the frequency of power and presence and faith and show up in that frequency. And that changes everything. Show up in your power, in your purpose, because you are the anchor. And when you are anchored in yourself, you rise more powerfully, more fully into who you're here to be. Be one that people calibrate to you. You are like a tuning fork. And when you are in harmony and in resonance and alignment, you will set a whole ripple effect outward. Because when a tuning fork is struck, it doesn't change its pitch based on the noise around it. It holds its frequency and everything begins to harmonize and attune to it. So this is where we go. We go for calibration. We become the one that people calibrate to. We create coherence within our own field because hearts are so powerful and the heart sends 10 times the amount of signals to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. So when we bring ourselves into coherence and breathe in a way that creates heart coherence, we receive coherent signals from the heart. And then the brain is able to send coherent signals to the body. And people around us calibrate to our heart frequency because when we're in reaction mode, our hearts will sync up with someone who's feeling anxious or fear or whatever, and it's easy to create and compound more of that. But if we're aware of how we're feeling and we're the anchor, since we are the anchor, we're remembering our power to create and have others calibrate. This is the intention. This is the purpose of why we're here. We're here to hold our frequency, regardless of what is going on. Despite what is happening externally, we remain anchored, strong, powerful and focused internally. You are so much more powerful than you've been led to believe. And so I want to offer you a practice for the heart coherence because there are so many things that get us into heart coherence, like meditation, breath work, journaling, and gratitude, nature. But if you breathe in through your nose for 5 to 6 seconds and then out through your mouth for 5 to 6 seconds for 5 minutes, you'll create heart coherence, and that will last you for a couple hours, and then you can come back and reset to this breath. Because when you shift your frequency through your breath, because you are the tuning fork that holds a frequency, and your breath has a corresponding emotion. Each breath pattern has a unique corresponding breath pattern. So if we're breathing in a way that creates fear, or we feel fear, we're going to be a calibration portal for fear. But when we remember that we get to hold the frequency and we can change our frequency through simply changing our breath, we change our lives, we change the world. So practice breathing in through your nose for 5 to 6 seconds, out through your mouth for 5 to 6 for a period of 3 to 5 minutes. This will change everything for you because how you breathe is how you live. When we breathe more deeply, more completely, we live more fully, more completely. The roots are ready. Spring is here. It's time to rise. It's time to blossom and become. I hope this episode served you well. And if there's someone in your life who would benefit from these words, please share it with them. I'd love to hear how this landed for you. I'd love to connect on Instagram. You can find me at I am Anna Fink, and I cannot wait to see you and speak soon.